Today on the Big 3 in 30, the Big Ten schedule release gives the Hoosiers a tough test on the repeat run.
We now know the Indiana football 2026 schedule start to finish.
Some big recruiting battles for quarterbacks in the SEC.
Quarterbacks reportedly coming in.
And Deion Sanders starts fining players at Colorado.
Is Deion Sanders in trouble? A lot of people are blowing up this fine thing.
This is the Big 3 in 30 College, the three biggest stories on campus from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 in 30 College starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 in 30 your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Indiana Hoosiers are still celebrating their national championship, but the Big Ten is already looking ahead to next year and released the conference schedule Tuesday night. To take a look at the road to a repeat and the biggest games in the conference, here's Jacob Goins with Locked On Hoosiers.
We now know the Indiana football 2026 schedule start to finish. We knew the opponents, right? And we knew where they were going to be. We just didn't know how everything all kind of stacked up, and we were still waiting on a couple of things to get finalized. But the Big Ten announced it this week. We now know all the schedules for the Big Ten teams, including your defending national champion, Indiana Hoosiers. And I do think the schedule is relatively favorable. Okay, I do believe that Indiana will have several wins on this schedule that you can go ahead and pencil in, and a couple of them you can probably Sharpie in as well. So I don't think the schedule as a whole is all that bad. But there is a stretch, all right, in the middle of October that will totally determine whether Indiana can repeat as national champions or not. And if you've looked at the schedule, you probably know what stretch I'm talking about. It's the road game at Nebraska, a home game against Ohio State, and a road game at Michigan. Those are the three toughest games on your schedule outside of one more near the end of it. But we're going to talk about it and break it all down here on the show. And so, I mean, it starts out just brutal for the Indiana Hoosiers because you have North Texas to start, then you have Howard, then Western Kentucky. My gosh, what are we going to do? I'm kidding. I'm just getting out in front of this like everybody else who's going to call in and totally rail Indiana for their week non-conference schedule. Guess what? It worked last year, didn't it? If it worked last year, let's not change anything. Do I love the idea, right, that Indiana has 3 games at the start of the season where you should win by 70? No, I don't love that idea. And I've been very vocal on my thoughts on I don't love it, but I get it, and I understand why you do it. And again, it worked a year ago, so let's just stick with it. So you do open up the season, right, September 5th at home against North Texas. You'll then have Howard come in on September 12th, and then September 19th is Western Kentucky. So all your non-conference games are there, they're in, and then they're done. You open up Big Ten play at home against Northwestern on September 26th. Now, we understand that Northwestern is Northwestern, and you will be so much more talented than them. It's not even funny, and you should win that game. Should not have any stress, should not have any worry. You then open up the month of October going on the road to Rutgers. I don't expect Rutgers to be anything crazy. You should have no problem with them. You should start the season 5-0. You'll be a top 10 team. You'll be 5-0. Most people won't really buy stock in you yet because of your schedule, and that's totally fine. It'll be more so buying stock from this past season that carries over into next season, and of course the transfer portal guys and the ones you were able to retain as well. And then there's the stretch. There it is. 3 games in a row, back to back to back, 3 weeks in a row, back to back to back. You go to Nebraska as most likely a 5-0 team on October 10th, right to Lincoln. You then come home for a Big Ten championship game rematch with Ohio State. All right, you have that one on October 17th in Bloomington. How awesome is that going to be? Then you head up north to Ann Arbor and take on Michigan, a completely new-looking Michigan team, on October 24th at the Big House. That's the stretch, folks. That's the one where we will learn just how good the 2026 Indiana football Hoosiers will be. I think they're going to be extremely good. I think the talent is there. The depth is there. The coaching is still clearly there. So I think Indiana has a chance to beat all three of those teams. But two of them on the road and Ohio State coming to your place, that'll tell us everything we need to know about the Indiana Hoosiers. If they go unscathed in there, all right, they're probably going to win out. They're probably going to go and compete for another national championship. If they win two of the three, all right, you probably feel pretty good about it. One of the three or none of the three, then Indiana's in big time trouble. Okay, so that's the stretch in there. You then end the month of October. So 5 games in the month of October. You'll play Minnesota at home back here in Bloomington. And then you finally get a much needed bye week. Man, that's a lot of football between the start of the season and the bye week on November 7th. And that will be a time for you to hopefully get healthy, reset, kind of lick your wounds if you've got any, and prepare for a tricky end of the season as USC comes to Bloomington. That's a big game. Excited for that one. Hopefully USC is, capable and willing to be competitive in the Big Ten this year. So they come to Bloomington on November 14th. You go to Washington, to Husky Stadium in Seattle on November 21st. That might be the toughest road game of the year for Indiana next season, and maybe the second or third toughest game on the schedule for the Hoosiers. And that's also Washington's senior night. Funny enough, they scheduled that when the defending champs come to town. And then you return home on November 28th for Purdue in Bloomington. So overall, again, I like the schedule. It is heavily loaded in the back end compared to the front end, but nothing that Indiana can't handle, nothing that Indiana can't run right through like they did this year. And it's the stretch in October, and then USC and Washington. We're going to know everything we need to about this team, but excited for what that schedule looks like. Your home games, the big ones are Ohio State and USC, Purdue, obviously, but I just don't know what Purdue's going to be in year 2 there under Barry Odom. And so, again, Ohio State and USC at home, big road games at Nebraska, at Michigan, and at Washington for 2026.
It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5. And if you win, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's over for a long time. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. The Auburn Tigers have another year with quarterback Byron Brown, but who could take over once he leaves school? Zach Blackerby and John Smith look at some of the biggest quarterback recruiting battles in the SEC on Locked On Auburn.
Quarterbacks reportedly coming in. Israel Abrams, one of the top quarterbacks, a 4-star across the board. He visited a few weeks ago, Brian. And then Elijah Haven and Andre Adams reportedly coming in soon. Let's go in chronological order here. Israel Abrams, 6'4", 190-pound quarterback, 4-star across the board from Arlington Heights. That's apparently in Illinois.
Chicago. Yeah.
A lot of these guys, a lot of folks like this kid. And it sounds like he is interested in what Alex Golish is selling. What do you know about Israel Abrams?
National recruit. He's going to have all the offers. He's got pretty much all of them already. He's a guy that can throw the deep ball, and he plays at a program that's always got players. So he's been on the scene for a few years. Michigan, Notre Dame. Anybody you imagine, they've either offered, recruiting him, whatever. Getting him on campus is intriguing because you never know about a Chicago kid coming down south. that'll be a yes or a no. Either he likes it or he doesn't, but you'll know pretty quick. And for Golish and his staff to recruit him, like to put in the effort recruiting a kid, it's going to be hard to get a Chicago kid, but why not? They've done it before. So is it possible? Yeah. And they need to continue pushing the quarterback depth chart because Byron Brown's only going to be there 1 year.
Yeah, Israel Abrams, you look at his unofficial visits as of late, Purdue, which makes sense proximity-wise. Purdue, he's visited Purdue even most recently on January 24th, but also even back in August. Unofficially visited Iowa State, Tennessee, got an offer from Duke recently. But as far as like tracking the unofficial visits, like there's not an Ohio State or a USC. Like there's not like a national power as far as like people hosting them. Is that good for Auburn? Is that a disagreement in like how we transition to the next level? Or is it just early, Brian? If you even can be too early for a quarterback?
Oh, that's a great question, and probably do a whole podcast on that. But
right.
It's sad, but it's the most important position in sports. I think that the visits coming up, Auburn in particular, and then February, I know Notre Dame's like holding off on some of their visits to like March.
Okay.
So it just depends on the school, but I expect some of the Midwest schools, Nebraska, Ohio State, Wisconsin, all of them are going to look at him or offer him. And that list, like on 24/7 or wherever you're looking, may not be sometimes it's not complete, but he can go pretty much where he wants. That's a national top 100 kind of kid.
All right, let's pivot to Elijah Haven. Expected to visit Auburn soon. Baton Rouge kid. There's a crystal ball in for him to go to Alabama. But once again, a who's who, very SEC heavy offer list and visit list happening. Even some Penn State going on in there as well. So what do we know about Elijah Haven? His 247 page has him 6'5", 215, good size, and a 5-star.
I saw him at Future 50 this last summer, and the size is legit. That's a big dude. He's a pocket quarterback that can move, but he prefers to throw it. He's one of those guys that'll run only really if he has to, but he's got a natural throwing motion, and he's been brought up to play quarterback. He's one of those guys that's played it forever. He's at the Dunham School in Baton Rouge. It's a really high academic school. I don't know what to really make of his high school film, but seeing him live helped a lot. You can tell that he processes well. And I don't think he's a kid that's going to struggle with the college game like some other guys do. He's very, very articulate. So offer list is through the roof. And before anybody asks, yes, he's Baton Rouge, but there's another kid by the name of Peyton Houston is from Shreveport that's already committed to LSU. And they're not both going to go to the same school. So he's not going to end up at LSU.
Yeah, it seems like he's looking elsewhere, which could be good. Good for Auburn. Now Golish, we'll see. And then Andre Adams, the last quarterback I want to bring up, 6'2", 180. 247 has him a 3-star. The composite has him as a 4-star. So high 3-star, low 4-star. Looks like Joel Gordon, the offensive coordinator, rightfully so, all over this. But getting, he visited Vanderbilt not too long ago. Also visited Auburn during the season back in October. So another name to watch, and he is from the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, this is a kid that's kind of blown up in the last 6 months. He's starting to get a lot of attention. Auburn's been on him for quite a while. I know you and I had discussed him prior to today. He's an SEC kid. He can move. I think he's a guy that can end up being a major starter at a major program. In other words, not just a guy. He could be a multi-year starter. Now we get into the question of who visits when, who wants to take out, because like I'm assuming Auburn's taking one. If they're only taking one, like you got these kind of kids on campus, you got to ask yourself, okay, if like Haven's number one on our board, do we wait for him, hell or high water? But what if one of the other kids, this is the stuff that's so much fun with recruiting, especially at quarterback, because one is one.
Yeah.
You may take the first guy. So
and I think they're going to have to go portal after this season anyway. So like your quarterback room is Byron Brown, who's, as you mentioned, done after this year. Tristan Tia, redshirt freshman. Lachlan Hewlett, redshirt freshman. Reese Brush will be a true freshman. So, yeah, I think you bring in one in the 2027 class, and I think you portal a guy after this season.
Absolutely.
And, like, that seems pretty cut and dry. Like, I think that's going to be the plan. And, you may lose one of the younger guys because it doesn't make sense to have two guys in the same class. Like, it just doesn't. And so if Tia or Hewlett feels like they need to leave and, they've been buried behind the other one, You probably lose one of those guys, maybe not. We'll see. And so, maybe you have to portal another guy in or get another. Maybe that causes you to get another incoming freshman quarterback. But to me, I say you just get the best one you can and build your class around him.
That's what a lot of teams do, but every now and then somebody rolls the dice. And with quarterback, man, you know the deal. If you miss, it's pretty rough. So, but Auburn would do very well with any of those three.
Yeah. As far as being on schedule, and I think some of this has changed with the portal and with NIL. But at what point is it, okay, like you need your quarterback in this class? When do you expect those dominoes to start falling? Auburn was in a weird spot with how late Deuce Knight flipped from Notre Dame to Auburn. What is that, 2 classes ago? And the one prior to that, like Walker White committed early, picked Auburn over Clemson and all of that. Like, so what do you expect to happen this go round?
You really would like to have one in the fold no later than the end of March. Then when the official visits start at the end of April on through your quarterback, you're hoping he comes to campus as much as possible and helps you get receivers, tight ends, and O-linemen.
Yeah.
But I expect to start seeing several guys commit within the next month because of the junior days, because of what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, everybody's in the same boat here. They know. And if they miss on that one guy, it can go sideways. So it's always fun.
It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5. And if you win, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's over for a long time. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. Colorado head coach Deion Sanders says he'll start fining players for breaking team rules like showing up late for meetings. Will Coach Prime face heat for fining players who are still technically student athletes? Locked On Buffs host Kevin Borba looks at the situation.
Jay, is Deion Sanders in trouble? A lot of people are blowing up this fine thing. Like, is he going to get in trouble because they're not employees, which we'll get to in a little bit? Is he in trouble because this is unethical because they're just kids? Like, is Deion Sanders in trouble? What is your stance on this?
First off, Kevin, thank you for having me. It is a fascinating concept that he actually laid out the amounts that he's going to fine people for. Like, no other school's really done that. Now, we all know that other schools do this. This is not a uncommon practice to dock pay or stipends or anything when players break rules or internal violations. They call it, they did actions that was detrimental to the institution or whatever the heck they decide to call it. But they find ways to do this, so it's not uncommon. I think the thing that just made everybody surprised was the fact there was a $2,500 fine for missing practice. First and foremost, is there a problem with people missing practice? Second,
I saw that as well. I was like, is that happening?
Like what? And then secondly, why are you putting out there these numbers for people to see? Now, I get that the way Prime has done this with his son, with Deion Sanders Jr. and the whole well-off media piece, I get they really document everything. That's probably one of those things you shouldn't have documented just to keep people at bay. So my personal opinion, I'm here for it. You're getting paid. Nothing wrong with getting fined. As long as, there's an agreement, I guess you could say, with the players who's going to, if you don't agree to it, you just can't come to practice anymore. The bigger issue for Prime is truly that legally, if a player decided to fight it, they could sue and they'll probably win because they never collectively bargained on this. But ain't none of these kids going to do that. I mean, right? Like, for them, it's stay my butt and get my butt to practice on time, get my butt to work on time, and I'll be all right. They also ain't as balling as we think they are. Most of these kids are broke, so it ain't like they going to actually have the money. They just going to have to run and figure out how to not, like, to me, make they butt run suicides. That's what I'm used to doing. But hey, I ain't mad at you taking a few dollars from their pocket just to make sure they understand the gravity of the situation.
Yeah, I think to answer the question, is Deion in trouble? Coach Prime is in trouble? No, but is there trouble that can happen? Kind of, and it's not in the way like you mentioned. I love this idea because I think we have this like mindset of coddling college athletes at times, and it's like, do I value their mental health? Of course. Do I value them being treated right? Of course. But are they also adults? Yes. Like me and my friends talk about all the time. College is like the one time in life where you're basically an adult, but you have minimal responsibilities. As a college athlete, that doesn't apply to you, right? You have all the responsibilities in the world. This is a job for you. And if you have a job, there are punishments, right? If we don't do our job, we don't get paid, right? Or we lose our job. Now, the thing where I think trouble could find Colorado is, like you said, if a dude doesn't show up and is racking up fines, what's stopping him outside of fear of, I guess, retaliation, which would just be another lawsuit going in the direction of Colorado? What's stopping him from suing them and be like, you know what? Like, I didn't sign up for this. Like, even though they technically did sign up for this, they can like take legal action. Now, I do think that'd be a little bit of a career suicide because I don't really know where you go from there. But Colorado finds itself in a unique position because they are, like you said, the first program really ever to document the prices. Like they range from $500 to $5,000, and I don't know how many players on that roster are able to pay $5,000 for conduct detrimental to the team. Like that seems like a lot, and just one of those things. Yeah, that's a big chunk. But it's just one of those things where it's like I feel like it's necessary. But like you said, I don't think I would have broadcasted it just because I feel like that opened you up for some sort of trouble to come your way from the NCAA or powers that be.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is you just put a target on your back. Now people are going to be watching like a hawk. Now, granted, the ones that could truly go and possibly sue would be your higher profile players, a Julian Lewis, something like that. But a player like that's actually going to show up to practice though, right? They're going to be there working late. They're going to be there training on a regular basis. They're going to show up early. They're the first man out in and the last man out type situation. So the ones that are usually the ones that are your lower end players, the ones that are problem children, ones you probably want to kick off the team anyway. So we got to remember these are 1-year contracts. A lot of these kids end up getting kicked off the team or pushed out and saying, hey, yeah, I mean, you can stay, but there's a good chance you ain't getting much playing time because we bringing in somebody else on top of you. So there's tactics to do that in a quote unquote tactful way. That's the better way to say it. But yeah, it's just the documentation of all of it. To me, it's just, you don't want to put that type of target on your back. Now, granted, again, Bucky and all of them with well-off media, this is what they do. They put all that stuff out there. It gets a lot of views. It brings a lot of attention in. And it honestly does help the University of Colorado a lot because all eyes are always on Prime and everything that's going on there. That's just that negative attention they probably didn't want. They're probably sitting back looking at it saying, yeah, we probably should have cleaned that up a little bit. That's probably not something we should have shown the world. But it's okay. To me, like you said, I don't think Deion's in trouble. I don't think Prime has to worry about any type of troubles because it would truly have to take someone, and it would take a high-profile player to actually sue in regards to their fine. And the question is the legal fees worth a $500 fine? Yeah, that's usually where the question comes in. Now, I mean, NFL players are getting, fined 20-something grand, and that's when they just like, I'm paying my fine and be gone by my day. But that's also collectively bargained, so it's not something they can fight. These players at $500, it ain't really worth trying to sue over.
No, because your lawyer fee is you're gonna be down $1,500. Like that's just how lawyers work. It's like, okay, we're $500 by the hour, and this is gonna be a 2-hour meeting, by the way. So it's just one of those things. I will say this though. This just goes to show the Coach Prime effect, if you will, because Kirby Smart, and I posted this article, admitted to ESPN in 2024 that they were finding guys at Georgia for their driving issues. And granted, it was the NIL collective finding them, so I don't know if that changes things. In my eyes, it's still the program or the representative of a program finding players for breaking rules. So this has been happening.
That's all for today's Big 3 in 30 College. If you follow pro basketball or football, the Big 3 in 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and the NFL going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA or the Big 3 in 30 NFL, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning into the Big 3 in 30 College.